Hi, everybody. Hello, and welcome to this conference hosted by MS Focus, the Multiple Sclerosis Foundation. I'm your host, Deborah Foreman, the Educational Programs Coordinator for MS Focus, and I'm joined by Matt Cavallo, who will be talking to us today about his journey into a new life with multiple sclerosis. After a presentation from Matt, we'll open it up to your questions and answers, and I'm delighted to actually read his bio. At age 28, Matt Cavallo was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. Seemingly overnight, he went from a fully functioning, healthy man to someone who was numb from the waist down and unable to work. Through hard work and rehabilitation, he learned how to walk again. Through his recovery, he also learned the power of his story. He found that by sharing his own patient journey, he would help others going through similar health challenges and help providers better understand the voice of the patient. As a result of his diagnosis, Matt has dedicated his life and career to healthcare and helping others with chronic illnesses. Matt has his master's degree in public health administration and has worked in numerous clinical settings as well as with insurance and pharmaceutical companies. Matt's mission is to help chronically ill individuals live their best life and find resources to accomplish their goals. Matt Cavallo is the founder and chief empathy officer of the Patient Activation Network and is a patient experience thought leader who has been a keynote speaker for healthcare events across the country. He has been named among the top 10 social health makers by ShareCare, and his blog was selected as one of Healthline's top multiple sclerosis picks. His story of being diagnosed and overcoming the physical and emotional challenges associated with having a chronic disease can be read in his memoir, The Dog Story, A Journey into a New Life with Multiple Sclerosis. We are very, very pleased, Matt, to have you today, and especially talking about this topic. So thanks for being with us, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, Deborah. And, that was a lot. I feel like now that you read the bio, I really don't have much to say. So we can just move on. Hey, everybody. My name is Matt Cavallo. I am 44 years old. I live in Chandler, Arizona. Today, I'm happy, healthy, and feeling great overall, but it wasn't that way. So I'm here today to share with you my personal story so you know that if I can do it, you can too. Before I get going, let me ask you a question. Have you ever found yourself standing on the crossroads of life, needing to make a difficult decision? Inevitably, in all decisions you have to make, there's an element of timing. Sometimes the time's good and it feels like that thing you want is going to happen just the way you want it. In other times, the timing's not right, and it feels like that thing you want is never going to happen at all. That was the way a difficult, life-changing decision my wife Jocelyn and I faced, and that was whether or not to get a dog. Let me give you a little bit of a backstory here. I met my wife in the summer of '99 in Tempe, Arizona. She had just graduated the University of Arizona and was living up in the Phoenix area and working as a school counselor. I was meandering through my mid-20s as a mutual fund accountant. I still needed some credits to graduate college. Jocelyn and I got together. She helped me get back into school full-time at Arizona State. And our relationship progressed quickly. In fact, a year after I met her, we were getting engaged to be married. And it was on the night of our engagement that she looked at me and she said, "Matt, on the day we're married, you can have your dog." 1 year later. So we're getting married. We're at this beautiful resort in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm looking all fancy in my tux. In my hotel room getting ready for our big day, and I hear a knock at the door. I open the door up, and standing there is one of my groomsmen, and he's got this present. It's a small present, so I could tell that she didn't fit like a dog in there, but I was sure she had put like a leash or a collar and a picture of a puppy, you know, something cute like Jocelyn would do. So I tore it open in anticipation, and it was a digital camera. Now, this is 2001. You know, I know today everybody has a phone with a digital camera on it, but back then it was kind of a big deal. And we were going on a honeymoon, which are memories to last a lifetime. So no doubt a camera was the practical gift for that moment. But it wasn't my dog. So, you know, we get married, we have our celebration, and then we're off on our honeymoon. And as we get on the flight and the plane takes off, I turn to my new bride and I say, "Hey, Jocelyn, um, great wedding. You look beautiful, by the way. But I thought I was getting a dog. What's up with that?" And she looked at me and she said, "Matt, I really wanted to get the dog, but the timing's not right. You're still going to school. I'm working full time to support the both of us. Once you graduate college and get a job, then the time will be right to get a dog." 2 years later, I'm about to graduate Arizona State University with my bachelor's here in Tempe, Arizona. My wife and I have a beautiful house close to campus, great friends, everything's going right, but still no dog. So I get my cap and gown on, and I go to the ceremony. We come back, and when we get into the house, there's a present on the coffee table, and it's a bigger present, but there's no air holes. So I knew if she had stuffed a dog in there, I had to get it out right away. So I opened it up, and this time it was a digital camcorder. Now I'm thinking to myself, another major life moment, another camera, right? And I'm not much of a video person, so I wasn't, you know, as happy with this gift because I had really built myself up, you know, momentum for this dog. And so I look at her and I say, "Jocelyn, you know, another major milestone, another life-changing moment. And we did it together. It was such hard work. But I'm beginning to think I asked you to marry me on false pretenses of ever getting this dog." And she looked at me and she said, "Matt, I really, really wanted to get you the dog this time. But look around. Our life is in boxes. We're moving to Massachusetts. It wouldn't be fair to get a little puppy and then drive him all the way across the country. Once we get back to Massachusetts, get settled down, get jobs, then you can have your dog." 2 years later, I've got a job as a real estate developer in Boston. I'm a junior analyst on the way up the ladder. Jocelyn is still a high school guidance counselor, you know, helping make a difference in the lives of kids. We have friends. We have a little 1950s ranch house with a fenced in third of an acre lot. Everything in our life is going perfect, but still no dog. That's when it happened. It was May of 2005. And I remember it like it was yesterday. It was one of those cold, rainy, 35-degree days in Boston as summer is approaching. And I was started to get out of bed, and I noticed I couldn't feel my feet. Like I put my feet on the ground, but I had these pins and needles. So I thought I had slept wrong on my back or something. And I had been at the gym playing basketball and working out the night before. So I was thinking, hey, maybe I tweaked a muscle or something like that. And then I tried to get out of bed. And as I got out of bed, I noticed that I couldn't walk. I was kind of doing this penguin waddle, like side to side, and I was pushing off the walls to kind of propel myself down the hall. It was like I had went to bed normal the night before, and I woke up the next day and I couldn't walk. And despite the fact that I couldn't walk, I still had to go to the bathroom. So I made the trek down the hall, and I get to the bathroom, and the plumbing wasn't working. And I'm not talking about the toilet. It was at that moment I realized that something was terribly wrong and I needed to seek a medical professional. So I did what, any smart man who couldn't walk would do. And I made my way outside of the house to my stick shift Ford Ranger. And I drove with no legs over to my primary care physician. And I had to, it was a standard, right? So I had to lift up my leg and push it down on the gas. And then I would pop the clutch, and then I would lift my leg and put it down, my other leg, and put it down on the clutch. It's a wonder I made it there. And as an older man now, I know I probably shouldn't have been driving at that moment, but I was thinking I was going to get to the doctors, and I had some pinched nerve, and they were going to be able to give me a shot or something. I'd be able to get to work. And I got to the doctors, and he acted strange. It wasn't like the typical visit. To this point, I'd never been sick a day in my life. I used sick days for what they were truly intended, golf and hangovers. And so the doctor was acting strange. He was kind of in and out of the room. He was performing a series of awkward tests on me, including the white finger glove test that I didn't think I would get till I was about 50 years old or so. And he was nervous. It was like he hadn't seen this before, and it made me nervous too. Last thing you want to do is go into a doctor room and they're not communicating with you, and they're acting like we've got a problem here. And so by the end of the visit, he told me I had something, and it sounded complicated, but I didn't write it down. I knew I wasn't going to work that day. My legs weren't feeling any better, so I struggled to get home, but I was able to get home. And I laid there on my couch, and he told me I needed to call a neurologist. And I was going through my Rolodex of mental health terms or medical terms at the time, and I knew a neurologist was a brain doctor, but I had no idea how my brain controlled my numb feet and legs. So at this point, I'm scared. I didn't think enough to ask the doctor to give me information about my diagnosis or write it down on a piece of paper. I just kind of, shrugged and left. And so when my wife came home that day, she was panicked. I didn't know what to tell her I had other than I couldn't walk, and I couldn't go to the bathroom on my own. So we were sitting there, and I knew I had to call a neurologist. So I called them, and as I'm explaining what's going on to the person on the phone, she says, okay, we'll schedule you for an appointment. The next one we have is in about 2 months. And I said, look, this stuff's going on right now. I need to get in there right away. And she's like, well, we usually reserve these appointments for emergencies, but we do have an opening next Tuesday. So this was on a Wednesday. About over the next couple of days and through the weekend, my condition worked. I went from being worsened. I went from being able to walk a little bit like the penguin walk to not being able to walk at all. And being a big, dumb guy, I didn't know at the time, because nobody gives you a map on how to navigate the healthcare system. I didn't know that with these symptoms, I should probably go check myself into the emergency room. I was thinking that I was following doctor's orders because I left my PCP, and he told me to contact a neurologist, and that's what I did. I'm thinking whatever I have is going to clear up on its own. Yeah, I wish I had those instructions that if it didn't get better or if it got worse, maybe you should go to the emergency room. As a 28-year-old who'd never been sick before, I'm not in that mindset. So the following Tuesday comes and I've got my neurology appointment. And my dad and my wife had to carry me from the house. I could no longer walk on my own, put me in the car, and then carry me into my neurology appointment. And he went through a series of complicated tests. This wasn't the white finger glove treatment, but he did things like he stuck my leg with a safety pin, and I could see the pin pierce my flesh, but I couldn't feel it go in. He took his keys, like the keys to his car, and took off my sock and rubbed them up and down my feet. Now I'm really ticklish and I couldn't feel the keys, the cold metal against my feet at all. And he said, Matt, I think you have something called transverse myelitis. And I turned to my wife and I said, that's what my PCP said. And so like it had been almost a week at that point and we didn't know. So she couldn't research it. And we'd start to get more and more nervous because it's only 2005. The internet wasn't great back then, but you could still Google stuff, right? So we had no idea what I had. And it took me a week to find out what it was. And he said, Matt, I need you to go to the emergency room right away. We need to do further testing on you. And so the emergency room was only a mile away. My dad and my wife picked me up, put me in the car, and got me over to the hospital. And they were waiting for me there. Like from the time I hit the waiting room, I was moved right through the doors, right past everybody sitting there. And I remember it. I remember this old guy stand up and he goes, I've been waiting here 3 hours and he just got here and he gets to come in. And I looked at him. I was like, I'm sorry, man. I get through the double doors and they put me in a Johnny, one of those hospital gowns, the well ventilated ones that they give you. And they put me in a bed and everything was happening so fast. And then they rolled my bed and they left me in a hallway. And this was about like dinner time back in Boston where this was all happening. And I saw like a lot of people were walking back and forth and I'm just in this hallway. My wife is out there in the waiting room. My dad's with her. My mom's with her. This is like a family emergency. And I'm just sitting there up against a wall in a hallway. And it was interesting because like people would walk by, nurses would walk by, orderlies would walk by. And I felt like I was doing the wrong thing. I felt like I got left there and I was supposed to maybe talk to somebody, maybe to like, maybe I got forgot about or things that happened so fast up until that point. And then they came to a grinding halt. And it was straight out of a horror movie. It's like in one of these dimly lit hospital corridors with like flashing fluorescent lights and nobody, all of a sudden, nobody's around, just me, my thoughts, in a bed. Finally, I did anything to get attention. I would ask for water, I would ask for food, I would ask if I was in the right place, and nobody wanted to talk to me. They would put their head down in their binder and keep walking like the questions I asked didn't exist. And so then I finally get picked up and I get moved into like a hospital room, but there's many bays there and I could actually see ambulances backing in. And a nurse came and she pulls the curtain closed and puts on blood pressure cuffs and an O2 sat, takes some vitals, and she's about to leave. And I looked at her and I said, "Hi, nurse. My name's Matt. It's about dinner time. Do you guys have any food?" And she looks at me and she goes, "Yeah, Matt, the nurse's station's right there, and we have a bunch of sandwiches up there. I'll get one and I'll bring it back to you." About a half an hour goes by, and then another nurse comes up, a different nurse this time, takes my blood pressure and stuff like that, my vital signs, and she goes, "Matt, is there anything else I could do for you?" I'm like, "I'm thirsty. I would love some water." And the last nurse said she would bring me a sandwich. Could you check on that? Finally, about 45 minutes later, another nurse comes up to me and she says, "My name is so and so, and I'll be admitting you tonight." And at this point, I'm confused because like I've got blood pressure cuffs on my arm. I've got the O2 sat thing. I have the curtain closed. I'm on my third nurse that's working on me. I feel like I'm admitted into the hospital at this point. And she goes, "No, this is our staging area. We needed to make sure that you were qualified to be admitted. Now that you are, we can move you to a room." And I said, and she was like, "Is there anything I could do for you?" And so I was like, "Yeah, I've been waiting for water and a sandwich. They told me I could have a sandwich." And she was like, "No, we were in the process of admitting you. We wouldn't have brought you any food at that time. So, they set incorrect expectations." And it's amazing when people set incorrect expectations, because like had the first nurse told me that I was in the process of being admitted and that they would feed me, but it wouldn't be until I had been officially admitted, then that level of frustration or that level of anxiety that was already occurring in my life at that time would have been eased, because I would have had the proper expectations set. So it's amazing how like those little communication tactics can make a really big difference in the patient experience. And so at this time, I get moved to my room. And, the one thing that I learned from my admitting experience is not to ask any questions, because if you don't ask any questions, you don't get let down, and everybody's busy, so you're not bothering them. And so I get to my room, and then it all changed. I met Shelly. Shelly was, a middle-aged nurse with shoulder length curly brown hair, and she had on these floral print scrubs. And she said, "Matt, my name's Shelly. I'm your nurse. I'm going to be taking care of you." And that's exactly what she did. I told her about my admitting process, and I said, "I have so many questions." And she said, "I'm going to sit here and I'm going to answer all of your questions, and I'm going to make you feel like you're heard." And she did. At that moment, my whole hospital stay changed, because I knew that Shelly was going to be there for me. It only takes one person to make a difference in somebody's life, especially when you're going through something that you're not used to, right? Or feels different or scary or foreign. So, I think ever since I've met Shelly, I've tried to be that person that when I have that opportunity, I try to pay it forward to this day, because there are a lot of good people out there that are going through similar tough situations that you might be going through. And I think if you can help, then you make a tremendous difference in anyone's life. So Shelly leaves, and my doctor comes, and I go through a series of complicated tests. This time it's a CAT scan, it's an MRI, and then finally the most medieval of all neurological exams, the spinal tap. And when they during all that, during the spinal tap, Shelly was there, and she told me, she said, "The doctor's going to say that this is not going to hurt, but it's going to hurt. Um, and if you want, here's my hands. Feel free to squeeze them. So they let out my gown and they try to go in my back with a big needle, and they can't get in. And it seems like all this pressure's happening. I feel myself sweating. I feel tears. I feel this like metallic taste in my mouth. And um, after about what seemed like an eternity of pushing and pressure on my back, the doctor comes around and says, "Matt, your spine is calcified. We can't get in. We're going to have to try another area." And I'm like, "It's not done," you know? And he goes, "No, we're going to have to go higher." And I said, "Doc, use the biggest needle you got, because I can only go through this one more time." And so he goes back up higher, which he told me was going to be more sensitive, with the biggest needle he got. And Shelly's sitting there with her hands extended, and I squeeze. And as I squeeze, they squeeze the spinal fluid out of my back. And after that, it got quiet again. I started being visited by PTs. They started talking to me about trying to get me up to walk. And the next couple of days I spent in the hospital, I didn't really see my doctors. It was just me and Shelly, and she was communicating all the information she could, or all the information she had. By the time I was being discharged, they still didn't have a diagnosis. They thought it might be one of three things. They thought it might be sarcoidosis, and I couldn't spell that, so I knew I probably didn't have it. The second thing they thought it might be was Lyme disease. And I was a bouffant-headed kid who used to walk my dogs in the forests of Massachusetts. I used to have these big German Shepherds, and I would walk them in the forest. No doubt I took a tick or two that my parents missed. So Lyme disease made sense to me. And the third thing was really scary. The third thing they said it might be is multiple sclerosis. And when they said that, my heart sank, because my Aunt Loretta had MS, and she died when I was only 4 years old. And my only living memory of her was that she was in a wheelchair, and she couldn't talk. She could only mumble and moan. And at 28 years old, I'm thinking that's my fate. And all the whispers from my family said he looks like Loretta again. So on the day of my discharge, I'm being wheeled out of the hospital with no diagnosis. I'm given orders to follow up with my neurologist in a month, and orders for PT to learn how to walk again. And on the day of my discharge, Shelly was off. And as they were wheeling me out of the room, I saw her familiar face walk around the corner. And she was the one who pushed me out. And she was like, "I wouldn't have missed this for the world." And she came in to see me on her day off. And so they wheel me out, and I'm sent back to my home. And I get home, and then I start physical therapy. They teach me how to walk again in the pool. And this was interesting to me. And it was kind of isolating, because I'm a person who takes hot showers. I love hot baths. I love hot tubs. Anything with warm water is something I really enjoy. But with maybe a diagnosis of MS, they had me in the cold pool. And it didn't make sense to me, because I was numb from the waist down anyways. I couldn't really feel it. My chest felt the cold, but it felt isolating, because I know they were just following their instructions, but everybody else was in the warm water, and I had to learn how to walk again by myself in the cold water. And I thought that was a really good acronym for what was going on in my life. I felt isolated and alone. I didn't want to tell people at work what was going on. I didn't want to tell people in my family because they just wanted to talk about my aunt. I was even pushing my friends away because I didn't want them to see me like this. Um, it wasn't fair for anybody, and it definitely wasn't fair for Jocelyn. I mean, we had only been married 3 years at the time. We had our whole life ahead of us, and all of a sudden, just like that, it changed. And so I'd like to say I handled it better, but I didn't. I went into a deep depression, and I stayed that way for a long time. I did participate in physical therapy, and I tried as hard as I could to walk again. And my follow-up neurologist appointment was on June 10th. And I walked into that appointment and I sat down and I thought I had this thing beat. And he looks at me and he goes, "Matt, you have probable multiple sclerosis." And I'm like, probable multiple sclerosis? What's that even mean? Do I probably have it or probably not? Can somebody give me a clear answer here? And he goes, "Matt, we're not going to know until this happens again, until you experience another relapse, if our diagnosis is confirmed." I'd like to say that helped, but it didn't, because now I left the office with this probability that I had this disease, an injection that I had to do once a week. And, essentially, "Good luck, kid. Let me know the next time you break, and then my diagnosis will be correct." And so I left, hoping for answers, and all I had was questions. And that did nothing to help ease the depression. It actually forced me further down deep in that hole, where I started shutting everybody out of my life. And I just kind of stayed at my house and I watched TV, and I tried to avoid everyone as best I could. And that went on for another month. And in July 15, I was turning 29. So July 15th is coming up, and my parents are like, "I want to have a birthday for you." My wife's like, "We need to have a party. We need to snap you out of this funk." And I said, "I don't want to see anybody. I don't feel like celebrating right now." And they go, "Matt, fine. Let's just come over my parents' house, or go over your parents' house. We're just going to have immediate family and cake and food." So I'm like, "Great, let's do it." And I get to my parents' house on July 15th, and we have some food, we have some cake, and then I'm handed a present. And this present was a book. And I'm thinking, great, it's one of those like, "You got MS and you can do it" books, or holistic, "Eat these leaves and you'll be cured" type of book. And when I opened the book, there was the face of a soft coat Wheaten Terrier. And I was confused. So I opened the cover of the book, and there was a handwritten note from my wife that said a litter had been born, and I got the mail from the litter. Now my heart sank, because I had finally got my dog, but I couldn't walk. How was I going to walk and take care of this dog? And furthermore, my Aunt Loretta died 8 years after being diagnosed with MS. How was I possibly going to get this dog if it would outlive me? But as I looked around the room and I met eyes with my wife, I knew at that moment she needed me to have the dog more than I ever wanted the dog. So I grabbed her, I hugged her, I told her I loved her, and I promised her on that day, no matter what my MS was doing, I would walk that dog once before work and once after work. It's been 16 years now, and I haven't missed a day. Ted, who's on the cover of my book, he made it 15 and a half years, and he was my therapy. He was who kept me walking. And he left us back in August, but he had done a good job. Uh, and I still keep walking today, even though Ted's no longer walking with me. And I've gone on to do some things that I never thought I would do after being diagnosed with MS. 6 years after, 6 months after losing my legs, I woke up one morning on my dog walk with Ted, and I couldn't see out of my right eye, and I knew at that point that it was going to be MS. This time I got right into the neurologist, and I was diagnosed with optic neuritis. And he said, Matt, that's two neurologic events or multiple sclerosis. And he, 6 months after my initial onset of transverse myelitis, I was finally diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. A year later, I had a cognitive loss. It was kind of like early onset Alzheimer's. Um, and that was a lot scarier than losing my legs or losing my eye. I remember one time with Ted, I watched Oprah, and I loved Oprah. I loved her favorite things. I miss her every day on TV. She was a voice I really liked to get advice from. And one time she had on a veterinarian, and the veterinarian recommended, for the health and longevity of your dog, you should boil chicken and incorporate that in their food because they're natural, meat eaters. So I would do that. And one day with my MS brain, I turned on some water and I left the house for some reason. And when I came back, I saw Ted running back and forth and crying. And I looked in the house and it was all full of smoke, and the pot had melted onto the oven. And it was like a second away from catching fire in my whole house. I was dangerous to be around. I didn't even know it, and I didn't realize that MS could do that to you. But every time that's happened to me, it's like every time I've lost something, it's always come back with perspective. I've been able to come up with compensatory strategies for losing my eyes, losing my legs, and losing my mind. Today I've had multiple sclerosis for about 16 years. It's going to be 16 years in June 10th. And I'm doing things today that I never thought I would do prior to being diagnosed. Like I lost my mind. I lost my ability to think. I knew I wasn't going to do real estate development anymore after being diagnosed. So I wanted to reinvent myself in healthcare. And one of the things I wanted to do was share my patient experience. So after I lost my mind, I went back through all of my journals I had kept as a patient, and I wrote my memoir, my dog story. There you see Ted right there. And that got published back in 2012. I'd never wanted to be an author. And all of a sudden I was a published author, and I was traveling around the world giving this dog story talk to people who needed it. I had lost my mind, and all of a sudden it came back with new abilities, right? I had to work harder than I had before to do things, but I had this determination that maybe sharing my story could help other people. So I went ahead and I did that. I also went back to get a master's of public health administration because I had such a hard time navigating the healthcare system that I wanted to go back and learn as much about it as I could so I could help others like myself. So today, in addition to being a writer, some of you probably read my stuff at MS Focus. I write a couple articles for them a month where I share strategies like the ones you've heard today, or maybe you've read my books. I also, work in healthcare where I provide training to the same kind of people, the same doctors and nurses that I met in my journey. So I wanted to get involved. I wanted to be a part of the change. So I lost my mind. but now I can still work, I can still participate, and I can still do things. I might not be as good as I once was, and I may take a little bit of extra help or some strategies like checklists and stuff that I didn't use before, but I can still do it. I lost my eye, and when you lose your eye, you lose your ability to drive and so much things that you never think about. And back in 2009, I decided you couldn't shovel sunshine. So me and my dog Ted returned to Arizona, and it was just me and Ted driving across the country together, in part to prove I did it. I could still do it. And because when you lose your ability to drive, you lose your freedom. And once I could see again, I wanted to drive and be free like the wind. And Ted and we took an awesome 3,000-mile journey together. And then finally, I had lost my legs. I had lost my ability to walk. And everything below the waist wasn't working. So in my deepest, darkest moments, I thought I would, I thought I would never be able to be a dad. In 2007, Jocelyn gave birth to Mason. I just happened to have a photo right here. And then 2 years later, we had Colby. So, all of the things that I thought that I would lose, I got back, and today I'm a dad. I can participate in their lives. And I think the favorite dog story talk I ever gave was back when Mason was in 3rd grade. I went to his, or 4th grade, actually. I went to his school because they wanted to bring me in as an author and tell the kids how to write a book. So I went in, I told my dog story. And I knew, I was like, how am I going to tell this to children? And I told it in a way that I would, tell it to kids. And when I was done, a little girl came up to me and she was like, Mr. Cavallo, I always wanted a dog, but my dad always says the timing's not right. So I'm going to tell him your story so I could get a dog. But I know the biggest effect was on my son, Mason, who, when Ted started to get older, he decided he was going to walk with me every day. So, Ted's no longer there, but my son wanted me to keep my promise. So he gets up every morning before school and every night before we go to bed, and we take the walk. That used to be me, him, and Ted, and now it's just me and him. So sometimes a chapter might end, but a new chapter will begin, and it might be a little bit different, but different's not always a bad thing. And you can use your story to make a difference for other people. And today, that's what I'm doing. And I hope you guys have enjoyed this talk. And I hope you know that it's not always going to be easy, and it's a lifelong journey. But as long as we do it together, and as long as you just try as hard as you can, it's not going to be perfect, but just do the best you can that day, and you'll get through it. My name's Matt Cavallo. Thank you so much for having me. And that was my dog story.
Thank you, Matt. That was wonderful. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So Matt would love to take questions if anybody has questions. And I do see some chat where we'll get to those. But we are ready for questions. So if you have one, or if you'd like to make a comment, you can use the raise hand feature if you'd actually like to speak. You can use the raise hand feature in the app, or you can send your question via the chat. I'm assuming most people know how to do that. If you don't know how to do any of that, just raise your hand and I'll unmute you. But anyway, let's see. Let's read a little bit of what came in here. So Alicia is very happy that we're recording.
Nice.
And, she wants you to know that they love their pups. They have 3 of them.
What kind of pups?
She didn't say. Alicia, let's see where you are.
Hello. He's actually in my picture. If my
I see him right there.
Yeah.
What's his name?
Champ.
Champ. Hi, Champ.
He'll be 9 this year. And though our story is not like yours, he definitely made a huge difference in my own journey with MS. So there are pieces of your story that resonate very much with this for sure.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yep. Greg wants everybody to know that he is with you on what you said, because he's had no legs working since 2017 and numb since 2008. Cognitively, it's the only thing really that is not a problem. He hasn't had a huge flare up of that, so I'm sure he's grateful for that. Let's see.
Thanks, Greg. Thank you for sharing.
Yep.
Oh, not a problem. I do have one question for you real quick. Did you get the dog through one of those like the companion or working dog program?
No, that's a great question, and I don't think we were thinking about that at the time. My wife had just found a breeder, and just like it was so new that we didn't know about any of those programs, and I wish we did, because it would have been a lot easier to have something that was trained. Other than my wild terrier. So
I've got my kid's dog, but it's not a teacup, but it's a Yorkie that's only about 5 pounds. So she has a little trouble helping me up. I'm a little over 200 pounds. So
yeah, they're not here. My wife took him out of the house. So the day my dog died was August 29th. And the same day, 2 Havanese, which are about the size of the Yorkies, were born. And my wife was like, we're going into a different stage of life. And she got me those. And it's so different trying to walk with them, because they're these little teacups, and, they weigh like 2 pounds right now. So it's a new chapter for sure, but they definitely, they light up my life. So.
They are really cute. Matt, you don't have any pictures of them? He sent me. They're little balls of fluff.
Share let me find one here. Technically I got them for the kids, because the kids were having a hard time. I think anybody who heard my story could tell that I've been having a hard time with it as well. Injecting some puppy energy is what we did. And let's see if I can find a picture where
you see how small this thing is. And that was for the same reason my girls were having a tough time with my.
Oh, what's her name?
Her name's Sophie.
Hi, Sophie.
Likes to pull her hair bow out. Normally her hair's pulled up where it's not all in her face, but.
Let me see.
Matt, while you're looking, can you just tell them the story you told me about where your dog is buried? That is so cool.
Oh yeah, while I'm sharing stuff, I'll show you the burial site. So
excuse me, Deborah, for Matt to share his screen, you're gonna have to make him a co-host.
Okay, I can.
Wow. I moved up to co-host.
Yes, you did.
That's pretty impressive.
Okay, Matt, you are a co-host.
All right, so am I sharing my screen?
Not yet. We still see your face.
All right. Well, these are better faces to look at. So here on the left is Barry and Jasper, and they just got done being groomed, so I wanted to snap a picture of them. Are you seeing them, by the way?
Oh yeah.
So these are my two little Troublinas. You can see I'm obsessed with them. I've got a million pictures of them. But I wanted to give you one that was, them being nice. This was Here's my kids. Here's Mason and Colby. Mason walks with me every day. Colby also, likes to help, but he's not as much of a walker. He more wants to play video games with me. And interestingly, because of my story and stuff, Mason wants to be a neurologist, and he's got the grades to back it up. It's kind of really cool. Let's see if I can find Ted here. So, let's see. Okay, go back to August. So here's old Ted. This is when he was tired. He was towards the end here. And here's him kind of looking at me. You can see his legs going out on him. And the day he died, my kids had never experienced any kind of death before. And we have this ranch up in northern Arizona in the woods, a big family property. So we wanted to drive up there as a family and say goodbye to Ted. And Colby helped me by digging the hole, and Mason gave the sermon. And underneath this heart is Ted's forever home. He's out there. He's out there overlooking the mountains. Let's see. So here's Ted's headstone with an angel of it, and there's his view of the mountains. So I get to go up. I get to go up and see him when I need to, and sit with them. So.
Thank you for sharing that.
Now I get to bring my fluffy troublemakers with me too, even though a face like this, he can't really be too much trouble, right? So
cute. Oh my gosh, so cute. Okay, well, let's see. Do we have any more questions? Sandra wants you to know that she loved your story.
Oh,
others
thank
with
you,
MS
Sandra.
hope to make some life goals too. Let's see. I think that's
David has his hand raised.
Hey, David.
Sorry, David. Let's see. Okay, you have to unmute yourself. David.
Yeah.
There you go.
How you
Hello?
doing, David?
Hi, Matt. I want to say I appreciate so much your story. I am so pleased, and I'm so thankful because your journey encouraged me, and I know it would encourage the others out here as well. I have been living with MS for over 24 years now, and I know I have my book as well. And so we share our stories to encourage others to just write it and let others know that you can still go there and make it. And I love the fact that you say that your son walks with you now in the morning and in the evening, and that family support is so important. And so congratulations and good job and all of the goodness. So yeah, that's all I wanted, my comment. That's all I really wanted to say.
Thank you, David. I appreciate you so much. Keep up the good fight, man. We're in this together.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Thank you, David. We have something from Holly. She said she was recently diagnosed in September with MS. Similar to Matt, fine one day, done the next. Thank you for sharing your story. She says it's always great to hear the other people's journey and to be filled with hope and new perspective while having this horrible disease. You are an inspiration, Matt. Keep sharing your story.
Oh, thank you, Holly. Thank you.
Oh,
And
nice.
it really is. And We're all the same. We may have experienced different things, but we're all in this together, and we need to lean on each other and be resources for each other. And you all are my heroes as well. I mean, you're the reason I keep doing what I'm doing, because when I started, I felt so alone, and then I started meeting people like Holly and Greg and David and Alicia and everybody who's Tammy, everybody on here that shares a similar journey. And we may have different symptoms, we may have different outcomes, but it's so good to know I'm not alone. And it's so good to meet all of y'all and spend this time with you. I really appreciate each and every one of you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Matt. If we don't have any other questions, we'll give it another second in case somebody does have something they'd like to say. But if not, that's all the time we have for now. If you've missed any part of this conference, it will be replayed on msfocusradio.org and available on demand on our MS Focus SoundCloud page or our YouTube page. Remember to follow MS Focus on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for times and access. So our next teleconference is going to be next Friday, not tomorrow, but a week from then, January 15th at 2 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern time. And we're going to be featuring Whitney Wilson, who's a dancer in residence with the UF Health at Shands Arts in Medicine. And there's going to be live music with Kathy DeWitt, who's going to be playing. She's a musician. She's also in residence. Their presentation will be interactive and will teach you how to make dancing therapeutic and fun. Our sincere thanks to all of our attendees for your participation, and especially to Matt Cavallo, who is kind enough to take time, trust me, his schedule is busy, out of his busy schedule to share this information with us. Thanks, Matt. Have a great night, everybody. We wish you all well.
Thank you. Take care, everybody.